All right, hello everybody. All right. I'm gonna let a couple people trickle in, and I'm gonna get ready. Today we're gonna do some quilting. I've got a very sweet little aquatic slash dinosaur themed quilt that we're quilting up for a friend of ours. So we're just gonna keep it nice and chill today. So feel free to come in, take a seat, get a snack, and get ready to sew. But while we get settled in, enjoy the sewing ASMR sounds here. It's a super blustery day today, so everything's kind of shaking the bus. So all right. I had to go find a bobbin for my machine, so thanks for waiting for me. Okay. I'm gonna wind right over this little guy. So feel free to come on in. I'm just gonna get my equipment ready so we can start here in a bit. Gotta reset my foot pedal here. Okay. So what I'm doing is I'm winding a bobbin, which is the bottom thread for my machine, off of a spool of thread up here up top. So you can kind of see it right about here. Especially when you're about to be sewing for a long time, you want to make sure you have a nice full bobbin so that you don't have to start and stop a bunch. So that looks pretty good. So now I have a bobbin. So that goes down in the bottom of my machine, and then I'm done with this color, which was this nice gray. Stash that. Now I have this lovely kind of, it's a fun sound, lovely sky blue color for the top of the quilt, which will go really lovely. You can see it here. I'll show you guys the whole quilt before I get started, but right now I am just getting all my equipment in and it's ready. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and thread my machine. So, get her started. Okay. I'm also going to grab a test piece of fabric and make sure everything's sewing correctly. Because there is nothing worse than having to unpick on like a big project like a quilt. So I just have a little scrap here, and I'm just going to sew just enough. Make sure everything is on. Okay, it looks okay. Alright, welcome everybody. Okay, I'm going to stand up and show as much of the quilt as I can. This is a baby quilt that we made for a friend of ours that is in the state to be ready to be quilted. So, if you are new to the quilting world, that means it has a back, an inner layer that's the fluff, and then the patchwork top. So those three layers together make a quilt, and quilting is actually the act of joining all of those three layers together. That is what quilting means. So we're putting those threads through to make this strong and hold those all together. You can see how sweet this is. I'll get it all the way up. It's aquatic on this side, and on the other side it is dinosaurs. So the back of the quilt is another opportunity to kind of express a theme or put some fun work, or it can just be whole cloth. My friend, the client, she wanted a little bit of fun dinosaurs, and we thought that was really a cool way to do it, and so now it will be reversible. But the main work we put into the aquatic theme. So you can see all this lovely patchwork that was done by my mom, so we are tag teaming this. So Quilting Koala, she did the top, and I'm going to be quilting it now. So actually what I'm going to do before we even start sewing is I am going to get a chalk pen and draw out some designs. Oh, hello in chat. Thanks for joining us today. So I'm not going to draw out the whole design, but more so what I'm going to do is highlight just some areas where I really want to get fancy, because I can. So I have a chalk pen, which is pretty much like as it says on the tin. It's got chalk inside, and it's got a little roller. And so this is mostly for like garment drafting, but it'll do for this. You could also use like a heat disappearing ink pen, you know, anything that'll wash out of the quilt. So I'm gonna just, get chalk everywhere. I'm just gonna sketch out some lines that I can follow later. And this will wash right out because it is chalk. And this just eliminates having to like think on the fly. I'll bring it up here so you can see real close. Because you're already going to be having to control the whole quilt, and you don't necessarily want to have to be thinking about the big picture when you're focused there on like a small. So I'm going to do what's called echo quilting around a lot of this, and that just means like picking a motif. It could be in the patchwork, it could be on the fabric, and echoing it. So just bringing it out in like ripples. So like if you had a circle to echo quilt, you'd make another circle, or a spiral. And it's a really fun way to just bring the eye back into the details here. And then so I'm just going to take a little bit of time and just pull out all my favorite like highlights from the quilt, which is hard because like I love all of it. But it gives me just a second to kind of reflect and pick out my details. So, like, look, there's this little Loch Ness monster right here. Like, how can I not quilt around that? Perfect. And some of these, just in the patchwork, what I'm going to do is pick like the strongest lines. So like in a 4-patch, like these little otters here, I might just do a grid. I might echo quilt the square. The most important thing with quilting actually is to know what your materials are, and to know what your batting is. And batting is that fluffy layer in the middle that gives a quilt all its delicious fluff. And certain types of batting need a certain amount of quilting. So like They might need to be quilted every 2 inches, every 4 inches, every 6 inches. That's what you like. That's like the only hard and fast rule. Otherwise, it's just going to be about kind of the artistry of picking out those beautiful details and quilting the whole thing up. So I'm just giving myself some lines. And I'm not going to be too worried about getting every single line marked. Some of it is really fun to do on the fly. But what I really wanted to do was make sure I didn't miss any of these like super delicious little like patchwork pieces. Like this whale is getting echo quilted because they are just fantastic. But see, this one also is fairly easy because they are geometric. So I can just like set my foot at like a 1/4 inch and just go around them, and that's easy peasy. And also, if at any point, if you are curious and I'm using either too much technical jargon or I'm going too fast, or you just want me to slow down and repeat something, let me know if you have any questions. I love teaching just as much as I love chatting, so please ask your questions and I will be happy to answer. I also want to do quilting inside, but whales have fins. See, like in this big block here, let me bring it to where you can see it better. It's this big pink whale, which is fantastic. Whales do have fins, but there isn't one in the block. So I might actually go in here and quilt in a fin, kind of in that same geometric style, because I have to go in here and add some quilting anyway. So that's like an opportunity just to add extra details that I might not have had in the patchwork or what have you. So we'll go all the way around. There. And you want to do your quilting with as little start and stopping as you can. You know, kind of think of it as like painting with their thread. So I'm trying to make my lines connect. I'm trying to have them make sense. I am still a pretty newbie quilter. Like I've made a lot of patchwork, I've made a lot of quilts, but as far as the actual like quilting process, that's the part I struggle with the most and want to change. Some people only quilt. They only do the 3 layers sewing. Some people do not quilt and they do only the patchwork. So it's really cool in something as like in a discipline to be able to specialize and kind of choose what you do and do not want to do. And then there's people in that community that will do the other parts, or you can do it all. Like, way to go to all of those jack of all trades. So just marking out some lines. And remember, this chalk will come out, so I can just kind of scribble through this for my own sake here. But like, look at this little ocean heart. Like, I love this. All right, going through. And I know my mom, who did the patchwork, she did the quilt top, which I remember is the top layer, then batting, then the backing. She did the patchwork top, and she made this seal, and they are so cute. And this one's going to be hard to quilt only because I don't want to take away from this one. I only want to add. So I think I'll do that piece last once I see how my thread colors are interacting. But I think I'll start at this end. And you kind of have to play how you're going to quilt it because the fabric will move. You don't want to make ripples. So I'm just trying to figure out how I want to go through and do this. Like in some of these square blocks, I might actually want to like add a star. That involves being able to draw. You'd think as an artist I would be less intimidated by some of this, but it's a different medium, you know, like I can have pencil skills and then not have them in a different medium. So I'm going to add a little star to this block. You know, maybe some crisscrosses through some of these others. Just going through and giving myself an idea. And this chalk will fade pretty quickly, so you don't want to get too like attached to any of your lines because they're probably going to go away. But you know, again, it's kind of like taking notes where you're writing the things down just as much for the sake of getting it in your brain as you are for actually like capturing it in writing. So, okay. All right, let's get this guy loaded up. get me sitting down. Okay. All right, there we go. So again, I'm going to do a test over here in the 1/4 inch just to see if I like the way it's feeling, because this part will get cut off and or caught in the binding, so you won't see it. So always good to practice where no one sees it, and that's what's great about seam allowance, and what's great about, you know, not everything having to be perfect. So. Alright, so I'm going to hold that up so you guys can see, because I know sometimes stitches get really small. You can see it there. It's cool. Like, it's this nice kind of sky blue, and that's going to go through the whole quilt. So we're going to use that color because it's kind of a medium for everything that we're working with, and the gray looks great on the back with the dinosaurs. And now we just go for it, which admittedly is terrifying. I think that's still why quilting is so hard, is just because you're going to sandwich this whole quilt, and it's a big part of it. It's really kind of like putting frosting and sprinkles on a cake. Like, it's what's going to bring it all together, and it's what people are going to see. Like, the patchwork is really, you know, obviously the design of the quilt, but good quilting or bad quilting can really make or break. So here we go. So with a big geometric quilt like this, it's going to be a lot of starting, stopping, and turning, just so I can get those nice crisp angles. And also let me know if the sewing machine is too loud. I can move the mic away. I personally love the sound, but we want it to be a pleasant experience for all. So. All right, and one block is quilted. Ta-da! Only like 100 more to go. Cool. All right, so yeah, now that's where you kind of stop and evaluate and dust the chalk off. And yeah, it's working. All right, let's keep going. Okay. I'm gonna do this octopus next. So I'm gonna come in. Whew. It's funny, I was looking for something easy because my arm is still killing me. In a good way. I got my first tattoo Friday, and it is still healing, and it's doing super well, and I'm super pleased, but it is in that nice sore stage. So I'm like, I'll do something easy, and now I'm like hauling around this big old quilt. But whoops. It's okay, the ink is safe, and what is pain? And so professional quilters, they have what are called long arm machines. Not that you can't do it on a regular machine, but that means like the throat of the machine, this part here that I'm shoving this whole quilt into, is a lot longer, so that you don't have to wrestle with your quilt all up in a short and small amount of space. I do not have one, so I'm going to be doing this just with the equipment that I have. That's okay. You don't always need fancy equipment. And we can make this work, so that's what we're going to do. So it's going to be a lot of me kind of twisting and turning. So, you know, if you didn't see the whole quilt when I had it laid out, by the time we twist and turn this a couple more times, you definitely will. Alright, so I'm going to shift it all the way around here, and it's a good thing it's a little bit cooler today, because I'm going to end up with this quilt on my lap for most of this. So winter definitely makes me want to work on quilts, because in the summer it's just too unbearably hot to want to quilt anything, because you're gonna be under a blanket. But now it's cozy. Even though it's not cold today, it's still a balmy 70 degrees where I happen to be, 70 degrees Fahrenheit, where I happen to be. So, whoops. So the echo quilting that I'm doing, I'm going around that octopus, is what's going to take the longest, but what I think will make the quilt really special. And because this is for a young human, I hope that their eyes kind of like following around the lines, and it helps them enjoy the patchwork as well. I have some quilts, or I had some quilts that my mom made me when I was little. I still have them, but I liked as a child especially to kind of follow my fingers along on that very tactile and textile feeling, just following the quilting as it meandered through the quilt. So I hope that they get that same joy. The intended recipient of this quilt is still a little young. This is a baby quilt, but you know, there will be time. Alright. So I'm going around this wiggly octopus right now. Trying to keep about a 1/4 inch around and just echoing that shape. All the way around. I think this is fun too, as an artist and a just graphic designer, illustrator, textile designer. Just seeing other people's art really up close like this, and really getting to appreciate and accentuate the details. Like, somebody drew this little octopus, and then it got turned into fabric, and then my mom made patchwork out of it, and it's in this quilt, and now I get to, use my quilting to highlight all its cool little tentacles, and it's neat. And I think just kind of that cool joy of art, in all its stages, is something that's really fascinating. It's like, hey, little octopus guy, you're making people happy. So to the artist that did that, good job. This is a really cool little octopus. Okay. And turn. This is quite the workout. This isn't even that big of a quilt, but shifting it around is pretty big. Alright, so I'm gonna kind of bleed the quilting into this next block here. Seemed to make sense, so I'm just going with the flow of this. And again, flashing you guys with this really pretty quilt here on the table, so you can see that in the overhead cam. Look at how nice it is. The colors are so cool. We went with a very gender neutral, so we have, all these beautiful ocean colors, and then these super fun, like, fluorescent pops, which just makes it a lot more fun. Like, nature is super colorful, and I'm really glad that we could kind of capture some of that fun brilliance. No, there's not hopping whales for real, but like, other things are super cool. Like, we've got a rainbow fish fabric in here, and just that makes me nostalgic for fun books and stuff. Okay. Chunking right along. So while you're quilting, it's important, like what we did first, before we actually put the machine or the quilt into the machine, is we did what's called basting, and there's lots and lots of different ways to baste. You can spray baste, you can sew baste. We use safety pins, but you're just making sure that that backing layer and then your fluff and then your patchwork layer don't shift around, because that can make a giant lumpy mess, and nobody wants that. We want smooth, we want comfy, we want cozy, we don't want lumpy. So you'll see me take out like 500,000 safety pins over the course of this, and that's why. They are for basting. I'll put them up top, as long as they don't get in my way. Gotta start working out again. This quilt is making my arms sore, which is slightly embarrassing, so bear with me. Although it is heavier and harder to move than it looks, so I'm not weak. I'm just not apparently quilt strong. I'm just trying to keep it nice and smooth, especially at like intersections of quilting that I've already done. I don't want it to pinch or ripple, so I'm going nice and careful through those areas. And then remember that the edge is going to get cut off, so you'll see like a lot of extra fabric and a lot of extra batting around where I am. And you'll hear me cut my thread. That's because in these like big white areas here, that's not going to show. We're going to trim that really neatly down, like when the quilt's all done. And then we'll put a binding on it. So this is all going, but having this extra just gives me more freedom to, like if the fabric pulls or stretches while I'm quilting it, I have extra. And then the back is a little bit bigger too. So if anything just decides to migrate a little bit, it gives me freedom. And just gives me something to hold on to too. Because again, these things are a lot to maneuver, and it's nice to not have to manhandle like the actual quilt part. I can manhandle the batting. I am using a cotton batting. This is called Warm and Natural. But there's lots of different things that you can put inside a quilt. You can just do another layer of fabric for a really thin quilt. You can use wool, which is actually one of my favorite things to use. It gets really fluffy, but those are heavy. And it, depends on where you live and what your climate's in, whether or not you'd like that. I'm in the desert, so it's not cold most of the year. When it gets cold, it's cold, but we prefer to just use cotton so that we can actually use them aside from just the dead of winter. But this one's going to Canada, but it's more of a summer quilt. So hopefully it will get some use, and you can always layer quilts. I always always like it a lot when my machine sounds like it's going to space. Okay, now I'm going to jump back in here now. So when I'm lifting up and rotating the quilt, I am keeping my needle down, so it's a little fragile. I can't like yank it because I do have a needle still in there. But what that allows me is like a singular point of rotation, so I can pivot the quilt like on, you know, a needle, and have it kind of capture that nice crisp, let me go all the way around, corner point, nice pivot, so I can get these like straight corner lines. So it's always really handy. One more stitch. And I've actually, I don't think I've actually quilted on this machine before. This is my primary machine. Normally I'm not, if I'm going to be quilting, I'm going to be using my mom's machine. She has a FAF. I have an Elna Excellent 680. I think this is actually the first thing I've quilted on this. I learned to sew on her FAF when I was a kid, or FAF. I always pronounced it FAF. But this one is new for me, so that's what's fun. I like this machine a lot for piecing. I think with a machine, I've had a lot of different, you know, especially like cheapies over the years, because I was just sewing whatever. And, you know, definitely in the stages where I was sewing like literal paper or literal leaves, it's not like I needed something really fancy because you don't want to gunk that up. But now that I've like kind of calmed down and I'm not sewing like literal nature in my stuff, it's nice to have a really nice machine that I can like rely on, and that's what my mom's FAF always was the machine I could rely on, and that's the one I learned to sew on as well. So it is interesting to kind of be quilting on my own machine here. It's cool, just kind of self-reflecting. Are we gonna do our thing? There we go. Plus this one has a cool button where you like press this little scissor icon and it cuts its own thread, and now I'm spoiled and don't want to go back. But I like different machines for different things. I mean, definitely privileged and excited to have good equipment around, but I am learning to do everything on my own machine now, which is fun. I've mostly done clothing construction on this machine, and it works really well. So, yay. Alright, so I will bring this up close so y'all can see. Let me bring it to the big cam actually. So you can start to see that there's like quilting in there. There's, you know, the nice echo quilting around the octopus. I've got kind of some squares here. Got that fat little seal, these nice little whales. I might go back in and add something in there. But you can see it's really coming along. And on the back, so I'll just bonk everything. You can see that I've just kind of meandered through the dinosaurs, which is fun too because it's like, ooh, what's on the other side? But that's why we picked this nice gray. There we go. So that it's just quilted, and then on the other side the nice blue, so it's just highlights. But yeah, you can also really see how big this quilt is. This is like a crib size or stroller size quilt, which is fun because, like, I don't know, as a parent it's nice to have lots and lots of little blankets. You can leave one in the car, leave one in the stroller, just have one because, you know, it's nice to be cozy. Alright, I'm going to slap this back in, make sure that I don't catch anything while I reset, and actually sit up with proper posture like an adult, which is something I am trying to work on. So yell at me in chat if you see me slouching, because I want to have a spine past 30. So like you can see here, I have to like shove all of the quilt up into the throat of the machine. That's like coming here from the front. You've got the arm that comes over. This is where you're sewing, and then you've got the part underneath that eventually hits like the motor, and that is the throat. So yeah, like, or the, I guess the arm. So like in a long arm machine, that part would come over longer. But again, this is just an all-purpose machine. Who's yelling at me? Why are you yelling at me? Oh, no, you're good. Okay. I think one of the really cute things about this quilt is that it has so many sea creatures in it. There's otters and puffins and polar bears and lobster, and that's just from like the one block I'm working on. So as you watch the quilt, let me know if your favorite animal happens to be in here, because we've got some pretty darn serious contenders for coolest animals on board. You'll see me kind of smoothing it out and checking the back a bunch. That's just because it's easier to pick out in pieces if I do mess up anywhere. And I am still learning. If you had a big long arm machine too, the quilt would be on rollers. So like it'd be stretched out. So it would keep it nice and taut and you have this tension as you were moving. I don't have that. It's not in a frame or anything. So I just want to make sure it doesn't get like rumply or caught on anything, because that'd be sad. And I want it to look as good as possible, because you know, put some good work into this. And I want to make it so that, yes, the quilting is like the nice crowning glory of sprinkles, and I didn't like drag my hands through the frosting metaphorically. So. All right. So now I'm going to go and make a little cross, a little X through this block, just to highlight these little otters. And they're holding hands so they don't drift away. Which is really cute. If anyone has any cool animal facts too, drop those in chat, because I love to learn about animals and I love cool animal facts. And like I said, there's a lot of really neat creatures in here. So if you see something you know something about, share it with the class. Just line them up. Also, let me know in chat if you guys have done any quilting, or what kind of sewing or crafting, or if you are just a cool avid learner and want to just hang out and see different people make different things. I like to watch people do things that like I probably will never ever get to do, like smelting and wood turning and all sorts of stuff, even though like I want to try it all. I know I can't. I like watching people do stained glass. I think that'd be really neat to like do a workshop on or something one day so I can try it. But I have probably too many hobbies. I say probably because, you know, who's to put a real limit? But I have probably too many hobbies already. So I'll stick with what I have and wherever life takes me with those things. But I also do love to watch just people make whatever they make, because it's really neat to see, you know, and it doesn't have to be a master. It's just really neat to see the process behind things. Because I can imagine already, like with quilting, that not everybody knows that you know, it's these layers, and then the quilting is the kind of the molding of the layers together, that stitch that binds them together, and then there's the binding on the outside of that. And you know, I think it's easy to just kind of see it as a blanket, or not fully understand all the different processes and terminology and everything. And then of course there's the entire history of like patchwork and quilting, and there's a lot of very specific and meaningful quilt patterns, and you know, to many different cultures that go into it as well. And it is definitely more than just making a blanket. There's a lot of tradition and history and culture in quilting. So if you're here to learn, thank you for that. I still have a lot to learn myself, and a lot of things that I would like to know more of. There is a very important history in Black America in quilting, and a lot of the symbols and patterns have very deep, significant meanings, and I don't want to see those erased or whitewashed. And I want to, you know, just learn more of their stories through quilting, because you know, definitely each group that does a craft has their own story. But you know, that's something, you know, as an American and as a white American, I want to make sure that, you know, I don't ever see erased, and I really want to see it highlighted even more so. So I would love to, you know, be able to see people tell more of their stories, especially through an art form that I do enjoy. You know, like that's the cool thing about art, is that you can share so much through it. You know, and it's something too that's like with quilting. One of the things that's really neat about it is it's not just an art. It's not just a craft. It's, you know, it is something that is able to be shared through generations just by the object lasting. But it's, you know, it's also just a functional object, something that, you know, it's utilitarian, but it's still like absolutely beautiful, and there's a definite art behind it. And I love that as humans that we do that. Like, I could just take 3 pieces of cloth and quilt them and call it a quilt. It could just be very simple and very utilitarian. But you know, as history has gone on, we've chosen to make these things beautiful, and now, you know, we can strive for these absolutely insane pieces of work. I mean, people can. There's a whole art quilt, you know, side of this, where these things are art. I mean, even the simple ones are, but it's more that, like, as humans, that we choose to surround ourselves with beautiful things when we could just get away with making them basic and utilitarian. We choose to add the art to them, and that just makes me happy as a person. Like, go humans. We can do cool things. So, okay, I'm gonna keep looking at this and see where it needs more quilting. Let's move it. Like these little polar bears. I had drawn a star, but my chalk decided to rub itself off. So I'm going to repin, so I don't have this big old clunky safety pin in the way, and redraw my star. Yep, okay. Got to turn this around. My brain's not working upside down right now. So there's this little tiny metal wheel in there, and it makes some really cool sounds when it goes through. I'm also going to stretch and get some water, because I need to be a responsible adult. I'm going to come in through this puffin block, which now my safety pin's in the way. and white chalk on sky blue, and white fabric is hard to see, but we're gonna do our best. That's what we're gonna do. And honestly, that's all I can ever manage, is just to try my best. Here we go. And turn. Hopefully I don't hate this. And one more point. And then I've got a little star. Actually, that turned out pretty cute. So, in the words of Miss Frizzle, take chances, get messy, make mistakes. But I'm glad I took a chance. Cool. So there's a type of quilting called quilting in the ditch, and when you make patchwork, you sew pieces of fabric together and then they open up, and the seam allowance is on the back, and it makes just this little channel. And when you stitch in the ditch, you're sewing right where the patchwork joins up. And it's a pretty common quilting technique because you've got a built-in automatic guide. But it's tricky because if you get out of the ditch at all, it looks really sloppy, which is hard because it's not easy to stay in that ditch. It looks like it would be, but it's not because it's fabric and it moves, and so I'm doing a little bit of stitching in the ditch right now just to kind of get some extra quilting without having it show too much, because I just did some really decorative stuff, but it needs quilting for the structural integrity. So I'm trying to find a fine line between decorative and structural. There we go. Okay, cool. So I'm going to show you all the star because that turned out pretty cute. So you can see it. Ta-da! So a little star through there. It's coming along. It's getting there. And then again on the back, just some fun quilting. So I'll have to go in and tie up all these extra knots and loose pieces, but that's work for the end, at the end. So let's see, where should we jump in? Gotta fade this all the way back under. This one isn't even that thick a quilt, but still getting it all the way under the machine and wrestling with it can be a hassle. So alright, I'm gonna think for just a hot second on adding a dorsal fin. Not a dorsal fin, sorry, a regular fin. Dorsals on the back. Side fin. Flipper. To the whale here. Alright. Maybe a little trapezoid. And I might just have to quilt in the ditch. Stitch in the ditch. Come up here, do the eyeball. Come back down. And it helps to plan out your route because you can totally cross threads. That doesn't affect anything. But yeah, sometimes it's just nice to know where you're going. Planning out a route, get your map quest on. Let's see, if I start up here, maybe start there. I can go all the way around. Alright. Proceed on the highlighted route. And in the absolute best way, and I think anyone that, makes things gets this. I'm using this quilt as an opportunity to practice some of my techniques. Um, it's, I know what I'm doing, so it's not like I'm doing sloppy work or anything. It's more just I'm breaking out of my shell and trying a little bit, and that's the cool thing. It is just thread. If I really mess it up, I can undo it. But it's also fun. And this quilt's a baby quilt, and the mom of the aforementioned child is an artist, so they get it. Just pushing limits for somebody, and it's good practice because I don't get to quilt very often, and that's my own fault. It means I'm not finishing quilts enough, and that's definitely one of my goals is to finish more things. That's actually why I started streaming, was to get more projects done, because then I have not only accountability, so thanks y'all, but then I have a community, and it's a lot more fun when you're making with people. So thanks for being here, and thanks for helping me get things done. Okay, so I'm gonna go nice and slow because I'm working with a light colored thread, and I'm up against black and pink, and my thread is blue. So I'm gonna go nice and slow on this mouth here. So be patient with me, just because I don't want to have a stitch out of place where it will really show. There we go. Okay. Moment of truth. Yay. Acceptable. This whale is so cool. Like, I didn't want to mess him up either because it's a rad pink whale. I'm just going back along his mouth so that I can get back to the outline. It's like kind of trying to draw without lifting your pencil, because you can't jump all over the place. So you can cross your pencil lines, but quilting is like drawing without lifting up your pencil. One, two, three, 4, 5. There's about 5 rows, like major rows to this quilt. I've quilted about 2, and it's been an hour. And part of that is because I'm not fast. But also part of it is just, you are restitching essentially the entire quilt just on top. So if you have a friend that quilts, or you are learning and you want to pay somebody to quilt, like, it's time consuming, so it's going to be expensive. But it's also, just time consuming and a labor of love. And I like to do it for people that I care a lot about, and friends and family. I don't quilt professionally. I don't quilt other people's work, and that's mostly I don't want to mess it up, not like, oh, I'm above it. No, I'm still learning myself. On big, like really big quilts, I pay somebody to quilt my really big quilts because I just can't handle that on my little machine. It pulls too much and there's too much weight. I can do about a crib size quilt, but it's something I'd like to learn. It's just, it definitely gets to be a point where like you need bigger equipment, and I'm not sure if that's an investment that's worth it for me personally. So, but that's what's cool about like finding a quilt community, trading work with people. Like I said, my mom was the one who did this patchwork, and I'm doing her quilting, so it's mutually beneficial here. And the friend who this is going to is a friend of both of ours. So, like, then the gift is from both of us. So it works out. Plus, it is really fun to, like, collaborate with people. So that is also really fun. And there's actually, like, speaking of the quilt community, there's a lot of ways in which, in the community, people collaborate. There's these things called round robins where, like, you start a quilt, and then you pass it to the next person and they add to it, and then you add to their quilt, and you know, you have like a circle of 5, 6, 10, 12 people, and they're all working on everyone's quilt at the same time, and that's really neat. Like, I have a couple round robins. My mom has a lot of round robins because she's got cool sewing circles, and I'd love to be part of a round robin again. I saw that there were a couple on Twitch, so maybe once I get out there a little bit more, I can see if I can join one and do some work for some cool people, and in return, you know, have them work on something of mine and just build a community again, which is one of the things I am definitely most excited about Twitch. Not only is it accountability for me and it's a creative push and I get to share and teach and learn, but there's also the community, and that's especially important in this day and age. But you know, it's also just been a while since I've really, really connected, you know, outside of my friends who are all artists, which is awesome. You know, just kind of expanding my artistic horizons and getting us all making again. So. And if you only know me from Twitch, well, hello. I also have a YouTube channel where I put more like scripted and like longer term, like longer projects that would take way too long or would be kind of silly to stream. I have a channel. It is under my name, Katherine Stocking-Lopez, and Art Skoolie, which pretty much anywhere online I am Katherine Stocking-Lopez or Art Skoolie. So if you see me, that's me. And hello. I'm gonna sneak in here and add the fin, which I keep erasing because I have fingers. So let me redraw this for the 27th time. There we go. And again, that is just a chalk marker for like tailoring. Oh, big quilt. For tailoring. And that's just giving me a line to follow so that I don't have to remember what a fin looks like while I'm also handling this machine. Oh, and thank you for the tag suggestion in chat. Yes, I'm still learning all the different like you know, tags and communities and everything on Twitch. And yeah, even though my like super specific brain is like, no, I'm quilting, I'll use the quilting tag. Yes, adding the sewing tag would probably get a lot of different viewers in, because not everyone is going to be as hyper specific and or maybe, you know, is wanting to learn the difference between quilting and sewing, and or doesn't know that there is a difference between quilting and sewing. And so yes, being accessible and maybe not as specific is probably something that is going to be good for me. So thank you so much to Sick Girl for that piece of advice. You are absolutely correct. Alright, so I just added that fin in. Let me know if you can see it. If not, I'll bring it closer to the overhead camera. But now our little whale guy has a fin. Or flipper, I keep saying fin. There we go. Cool. I wish it was a little colder, because this quilt is so cozy. Goodness. And it keeps ending up on my lap, and it's still 70 degrees here. Even though it's windy, it sounds like it should be colder outside because the wind is going crazy. But no, it's still hot. Even though it's windy, it sounds like it should be colder outside because the wind is going crazy. But no, it's still hot. Alright. Thank you guys for being in chat. It's nice to chat with all of you guys, and see you all here. Okay. So I just finished up the big pink whale here. I'm getting the chalk off of their eyeballs. So I've done this top row, and again there are, what did I say, 5? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 major rows in this, and I've done 1, and 3/4 of 2. So I'm going to finish up the second row and keep on going. Let's see. So I'm going to grab my chalk marker here and just draw myself a line. The chalk marker too is a good way to test out and see if you like the way something looks, especially when I'm working over like a really dark square. Like I've got this very nearly black kind of gray-blue jellyfish square here, and my thread is light blue. So it's like if I don't like the way it looks in chalk, I'm not going to like the way it looks in thread. So it's good to try that out as well while I can still erase it. So. And my thread is light blue. So it's like if I don't like the way it looks in chalk, I'm not going to like the way it looks in thread. So, and I know my brain doesn't get lazy per se. Lazy is not the right word because it's still a lot of work. But it's like, oh, look, I'll just, it's a square, I'll put an X through it. Oh, it's a square, I'll just echo quilt in a square. So I'm trying out different things to see if it's worth putting in more detail, or if it's like, no, that's cool. There's a reason it's classic geometry. I've also got this cool fish coming up that I definitely want to do something a little bit more exciting around. Can y'all see this pink fish right here? They're so cute. So I'll be echo quilting for sure around this fish. And their bubbles. Which I kind of want to do something free flowy around, and I kind of don't. So I'm going to draw it in and see if I like it before I go on too much farther. Because the quilting is supposed to not only structurally like meld the quilt together, but it's also, you have a chance to highlight details in the patchwork and really make the patchwork sing. And so I'm trying to make sure I don't end up with like weird shapes or anything, that everything like plays really nicely with the patchwork. Yeah, I think that looks okay. Cool. Rope safety. I'm making a pile up here so you can see how many were in the quilt when we were basting. All right. Jumping back into it. Oops, getting caught. Okay, here we go. So now that I'm like kind of at the halfway point, actually at the halfway point, I'm in row 3 of 5. So there's no easy way to put it under the machine, because like in row 1 I only had row 1, and I could work with row 2 through 5 on this side. But now that I'm in the middle, it's like you just kind of have to roll it up and kind of shove it in the machine and hope for the best. So anytime you are sewing, there's kind of this constant push and pull between how much do you let the machine guide and how much do you like force or pull on the fabric. And if you've got good feed dogs, which are underneath, and a walking foot on top, it'll pretty much guide it in. But like I was talking about with the long arm quilters, and quilts, they're on rolls that keep tension, and you just kind of float this frame around. So while you're quilting, you want to make sure that like you're kind of adding tension. That's why you see me with like my arms out and I'm kind of pressing. That's just so that it like just doesn't pinch in corners or anything. But that takes like this odd kind of arm strength down here. So I'm just kind of meep, which is why like between that and then maneuvering the whole quilt around, it is quite a workout. And then I'm not just being a baby, but I have a fresh tattoo on my arm that's still healing, so that hurts. So maybe not the best activity, but that's okay. Artwork's got to be done. And I'm not hurting the ink. I'm just sore. So it's just a me problem. But I'm gonna come in here and do these bubbles on this cool fish. So yeah, now I've got like all of the quilt here in the machine throat. So I'm coming around and echo quilting this fish. We've got this really cute pink fish with gold scales, and I want to make it pop. So I'm doing like a 1/4 inch outside of the boundaries of the fish. I'm taking out all these safety pins. Oops, sewed too close to that one, so that was a little hard to count. So sometimes you'll see me like turn the whole quilt and then go right back to where I was. That's because I needed to add like 1 or 2 more stitches to get to like the right angle or the right spacing distance. So there we go. Now I'm a 1/4 inch away from where I needed to be. And I'm just pivoting there on my needle in the machine here. And as you start to get familiar, you'll be a little bit better at like guessing or feeling out where you are in space in relationship to all that. But this is the first quilt I'm quilting on this machine in particular, and the first quilt I'm quilting in a long while, so I'm a little rusty. So no time like the present to just jump back in and kind of polish back those skills, knock the rust off, scrape it out, and just get going again. And as long as you're gentle, you can pivot all you want on your needle. Obviously, you don't want to pull to where it rips or pull to where the needle breaks, because that will happen. It's just a thin piece of metal. But, you know, kind of gentle wiggling back and forth isn't going to hurt anything. Quilting actually and sewing with big pieces like this reminds me of wearing big clothing where you're kind of like moving around heavy skirts or cloaks. So just very dramatically, there we go, heaving and hefting clothing. All right, and I'm catching back up with myself. So I'm going to tie a little knot. And then I got to jump inside the fish and give it some quilting because it's bigger than 4 inches, which is kind of the rule I'm using. So I'm going to get in there and just kind of quilt in the ditch, the join between the fish body and the fish tail. Fish scientists, jump in and tell me what part of the body that is, please. And I will probably also quilt around the eye because I like the way that that looked on the whale. And then that gives me quilting within that parameter of the 4 inches. There we go. So I'm going to focus for a hot second on that. spread it out, take a look-see, and I'm going to drink some water and stretch for a second. See, it's really coming together. It's fun to stop and kind of just evaluate the process and the progress as you go through. So we're about an hour and 13 in. You can see that we are on row 3 of 5, which feels like a pretty decent rate. It's been a little while. Like I said, it's been a hot minute since I have quilted, so I'm not obviously setting any land speed records here, but that's okay. And remember, if you have anything in chat, any questions, let me know. If that's a clarification on terminology, or if you want me to just slow down and explain something again, or if you have any sewing, quilting questions, crafting, or in general questions, let me know, and I'm happy to answer them to the best of my ability. There we go. Okay, readjust my mic. I might do another star. Well, that's a little close to the other star. So I'm just taking my chalk marker again with the little wheel and getting in there and making some lines for my brain to follow. And I don't know about you guys, but that is a really satisfying sound to me, to hear that little wheel going. So hope you guys enjoyed that as much as I did. All right, and we're just coming back in from the outside here. I'm going to do a continuous zigzag through 3 of these blocks. Hopefully that'll look nice. They are 3 different sizes. I've got a rectangle, a square, and a very skinny rectangle. So each one will have its own proportionate like X crisscross through it, but they're all different from each other, which is why I needed to mark them out just so I can see kind of point to point where I'm going. Rogue safety pins. Going right up to the little points and then changing direction so that I get that cool zigzag. And then to get going the other direction, I'm just going to go in the ditch and then back zigzag meandering. Sometimes the machine sounds a little clunky because you might be going through like 6 or 7 layers at that point, because you've got your batting, your backing, your batting, and the batting's the fluffy, and then you've got your patchwork. But in your patchwork, if you've got like lots of areas of patchwork where they've got its seam and the other seam, like by the time you get down to it, there could be like 6 or 7 little layers in one chunk. So sometimes you'll hear the machine make a little like crunchy sound, and it's as normal as it can be. It's just because it's working real hard to go through all of those layers there. So it's doing its best. Which is why getting really crisp points can be difficult, because you're going from like the thickest areas to the other thickest areas. And so I'm taking my time and smoothing it out and just kind of going with it. And then now the final zigzag, and now I've got all this kind of jammed in here. But that's why I only quilt small quilts personally. Now I do, and of course to immediately contradict myself, I do have a large quilt coming up, but I'm going to be hand quilting that one. So that one I don't have a limitation per se on size, as much as I do with my machine quilted quilts, but that's just because I can put that on a big quilting frame and get that one done differently. When they're big quilts on my small machine on this small table, it's just a little bit too much for me to handle at current skill level and current like equipment level. So I don't do a lot of big quilts yet, but always with the asterisk of yet, because I don't sit still and I like to challenge myself. So we'll see where that goes. And see what happens in the future. But yeah, I will be hand quilting a quilt here soon. It's decent size. I'd say it's probably like 7 feet by 7 feet, maybe a little bigger. Might help if I knew my own measurements, but yay big by yay big is a little bit more how I roll. And it's all homespuns, and I've done some wool applique on top that I need to finish up, and then I need to baste it and hand quilt that big boy. So I'll be doing some hand quilting here on stream here in a little bit. Not today, just soon. Got to get this one out and in the mail, because this one is a gift for a new baby. So the new baby is here, and I would like them to have their quilt. So it's also something that's coming up. We are entering that wonderful end of the year holiday season. So no matter what you celebrate, I do hope you are excited and ready to have a good one. I personally celebrate, Christmas and solstice, and mixed with some good Saturnalia roots in there. And so I am very excited for the upcoming winter. You also, part of my last name is Stocking, so we do that part of Christmas, and then we like to make a lot of stockings and make a lot of gifts. So I will be doing quite the stream miss. I haven't quite come up with the name, but like a winter holiday stream. I have lots and lots of projects kind of on deck for that. Brain power going here. Let me catch up with my brain here for a second. Sorry. I will be doing quite the stream. But yes, I do plan on doing a lot of streaming in the latter part of this current month and the early parts of December. So stay tuned for that. So I'll be wrapping up a bunch of kind of like non-holiday projects and then jumping into the holiday fun here, which I cannot wait for. I'm going to actually try and get some friends to either film or stream with me. I miss creating with them, and now with the kind of at-home tests, we can be a lot safer, because that's my priority too. Like, I miss my people, but safety first. And then with the little ones being able to get vaccinated, that will definitely open up possibilities. So yay, science. And we will get back to making things like we do. Let's see. Okay, so I have one block left of row 2, and I've done one of row 3. So we are chunking along. This is exciting. I've got these 2 whales that I think deserve something a little bit more exciting. So I'm gonna pull this out here, and we're gonna draw again, because they're so cute. I had drawn something kind of like this before. I don't want any like super weird shapes, like on the back, but I'm seeing if I like echo quilting around these guys. I'm thinking it just looks weird. So, you know, there we go. Like, I don't want to just do too many crisscross because sometimes it gets a little boring. I don't know. And on these one, on this one right here by the edge, if I'm gonna do like a crisscross, I'm not actually gonna go to the corner of the fabric. I'm gonna offset it in a little bit, and that's because we're gonna be trimming to this line and then adding a binding. So if I want that to be like totally visible, I gotta offset it by about a 1/4 inch, which is why this is harder like to draw because I kind of have an imaginary corner. So that's why this zigzags or crisscross is kind of kicking my brain right now. There we go. All right, much better. And I'm covered in chalk. There's so much chalk everywhere. I think I have more chalk on my machine and my hands than on the quilt. Okay. And then maybe a crisscross through both of these as one block. Mix it up a little. And so this has a stationary wheel because this is a tailor's marker, so you're supposed to use it to like trace around your French curves and stuff, which is nice because it helps me draw a straight line. It's not great for freehanding, but it's good for a straight line, which most of the time is what I'm looking for in this. So there are other tools out there. Obviously find the tool that either works best for what you're trying to do or, you know, as you go. Let's see. I think I'm going to stitch in the ditch for this beautiful penguin block. I can't totally tell if you guys can see. I'll pick it up. But there's these little penguin flamingos. Goodness gracious, I am not an ornithologist. Cute little penguin flamingos. I can't even use the excuse that I'm looking at penguins because they're on the other side of the quilt. Good job, brain. I think I just wanted to make a Benedict Cumberbatch BBC World Narration penguin joke, and my brain took over and it was like, nah, it doesn't even matter if they're flamingos, they're penguins now. Just so I can mispronounce it, just to make that nature documentary joke, because it's what, now like 6 years old? So, cool. Riveting. Outdated, outdated meme content here. So when you're stitching in the ditch, you're stitching in between like pieces of patchwork. I'd recommend that you kind of spread them a little bit, like you're trying to lay a book flat and really get into that seam, because otherwise you can like inadvertently make like weird little ripples, or it can just shift because the needle doesn't know where to go. So that's why you'll see me kind of pulling. I'm not really pulling for like strength. I'm pulling just to kind of open that book spine of patchwork block here open. Okay, and around. Bringing it around, down, all the way around. In case you forgot how big this was. Getting attacked by safety pins. Okay. And now some more zigs and zags. Goodness gracious. In case you are new or unaware, I am in a school bus right now, so occasionally we do get road noise. I apologize for that, but somebody apparently was just bound and determined to be heard. 4 miles. And on that note, school bus questions are always welcome. If you are a part of the Skoolie community, woo, shout out. And if you are curious about what it's like working in a school bus or renovating a school bus, I'm trying to put up a school bus, I did a ton of renovations and I made a video. It's just like probably 60 hours of footage I'm trying to edit through right now. So that'll be on my YouTube when I get through that. But it's exciting because, yeah, this was a used school bus. Art, my boss Arthur, he is a decommissioned school bus, so he was no longer being used by the school district when I got him, and now he is, my full-time studio, which is really super cool. It's kind of like my biggest recycling, upcycling project to date, but it's also really fun, and I'm living for the aesthetic and also just the ability to, have a studio that I can take anywhere. So, really super cool. There we go. Okay, let's see. Zig, zag, zig. Trying to figure out where I am and what I need to sew. You do want to try not to have too many knots. I made the metaphor of like of like drawing with your pencil down, and that's kind of what we're doing here. But you can, of course, jump in wherever you need to. You'll just have to take care of those knots later. So. If anybody else watched Octonauts, my brain is singing the Flamingo song. If you've not had the privilege of having a very animal-focused child, have you watch every single episode of the Octonauts? I both envy and pity you. That is an adorable show, and everyone should watch it. So, shout out to the Octonauts. Yeah, not so great on the whole ADHD brain that loves to just hold on to everything. Because, singing the Flamingo song. If you have watched the Octonauts, shout out your favorite character. Mine is Shellington, so. I also like Inkling, but anyone that knows me for any small period of time should not be surprised that I like the kind of awkward, dorky, shy, nerdy characters. I don't know. What can I say? Nerds rule. I also really like Captain Barnacles, but, he plays the accordion and wears lederhosen, but is also, like, mad respected leader, and, that's goals, honestly. Like, he can be a total dork, and the whole team is like, yeah, we still stand the captain. So. There we go. Cool, because once I've taken the safety pins out, that generally means the block is quilted, and I can really quickly at a glance see what I have. Yes, okay, in chat, Vegemals are a favorite there, which now my brain's singing their little song, so it's just Apparently it's children's television like half the time up here, which I could blame on my child. I've got a 5-year-old daughter who's amazing. But it's also just me as a person. And I could also be like, oh, it's because I was trained as an animator and I got to stay relevant. No, I like cartoons. So, plus you need no excuses to watch quality stuff. So go enjoy the Octonauts. Go learn something. Protect our oceans. Sing the Vegemite song. Sing the flamingo. I'm apparently bound and cursed and determined to not know flamingos today. So join me in my brain. Okay, so that just made a terrifying crunchy noise. If the mic picked that up, it's because I'm sewing through glitter. It did scare me though, so mild heart attack aside, I think we're good. That said, I will check my machine just to make sure that we are in fact good before I get ahead of myself. So I'm gonna quilt this one square with the glitter, and then see what the back of it looks like, making sure we're not like, I don't know, dragon thread or anything. But no, this fabric is really cute. It's rainbow fish, so it's got the glitter scales on it, but they actually have glitter, which is both amazing and awful at the same time. And my machine apparently did not like sewing through glitter, so I'm gonna check her out here in a second. But no, this fabric is really cute. It's rainbow fish, so it's got okay. Oh, nope, we're fine. Oh, wait, hold on. Okay, so I have a giant knot, so let me go grab a scissor. Why I don't have one on me is unsurprising, but beyond. So, okay, there we go. Got a cute little scissor. And now I can fix. So yeah, sometimes, oh, I'm also running out of bobbin thread. So that was a good point, if anything, just to evaluate, recheck the machine, check the bobbin thread status, and get rid of this knot. So yeah, whether it was the glitter or a tension issue or some combination of both, I have a big old wad of thread here. So I'm going to take the time to fix this because I may have to unpick it all. So I'll just kind of start gently cutting away and see what I'm left with. And that happens. It's thread. What I want to make sure is that after I cut away like the bulk of the knot, I want to see if I cut through anything structurally integral, or if I can leave it, if I can pull the threads back underneath. I'm just evaluating. So I've got a couple knots here that I'm just looking at really quickly. Let's see, yeah, on this one I cut it and it actually did cut through the thread, so I've got to go back and patch that. So it's best to do it while you've got like eyes on it, because once you do like a whole quilt, you can really quickly lose wherever that was. Oh yeah, see, I wouldn't have guessed that was right there. There, right in the corner by the plesiosaur, by Miss Nessie herself. So all I'm gonna do is take my scissor, make sure I don't have anything. Yeah, see how I cut that? Whoopsies. Okay, I'm just gonna back it up and then sew it, and then I'll pull my knots to the back, and just fix it. Like, it's just thread. There's nothing we really can't manage. And redo. Like, I've got a quilt that my mom and I made for my daughter, and I quilted it, and I was looking at it the other day, and there was something off with the tension of the bobbin thread, and the bobbin's the underneath thread of the machine, and like now the quilt is coming up on 5.5, 6 years old, and the quilting is just, it needs to be redone. And I'm torn because, like, while the quilting is part of the structure of a quilt, it's not like the patchwork's in any danger. So it's like, do I pull all of that quilting out now, or do I wait till it gets worse? And then, like, all my projects that are unfinished are sitting here, like, really, you're gonna pull apart something that's fine instead of finishing us? And I'm like, yes, maybe, no, I don't know. So I'm just kind of probably going to play that one by ear and let it get a little worse before I pull it all out. But I know that that's eventually going to be something that I have to do, and I'm not thrilled about it because it's a lot of work to take out all of that quilting, and it is a bummer that it was like an equipment issue, not like a skill level issue. So it's just hard not to feel slightly betrayed by the equipment, even though, in some ways it is my fault for not catching it at the time. But, live and learn. Alright, so since I'm on the back, I'm just looking at knots and snipping away any threads that I can, and making sure everything's nice and sturdy. Alright, so that is 3.5 out of 5 rows done. But as I look at it, I realize on this sweet little pink fish over here, I didn't do the bubbles. So since I've got it out and only a little bit of bobbin thread left, I'm going to do something small, and then I'll have to wind a new bobbin before I go too crazy. Because if you run out of bobbin thread, you can't sew. A sewing machine requires a thread from the top, a thread for the bottom, and essentially what the machine does is like loops them like this, and that's what stitching is. If you're stitching with like a singular thread, like in a needle, you're doing this with one. The machine's doing it with two. So that's kind of how a sewing machine works in a very thin nutshell. But yeah. Okay, so yes, while I know I'm running low on thread, so I'm gonna just do small things, because if I'm in like the middle of a line on something big, I'm gonna have to stop and rejoin, and it's better to, work smarter, not harder, or so the expression goes, and I attempt to continuously learn to do. So I thought about doing something organic around these bubbles, but actually they pop way more if I just quilt them right in the ditch. So I'm doing that. I think that's something I love about art, is that you can have really good plans, but a lot of it is really just being in the trenches and just making decisions and exploring and feeling out the material and just going by gut feeling. Like, I love to follow good instructions. I love to build Lego. I love to work with things that aren't as organic. But then there's definitely something, especially for my brain, that loves the just, it is what it is, and you're going to go in and you're going to make something, and it's going to turn out however the gut feeling works. I know sometimes it can be really hard to kind of like let go in those instances, and kind of like set your expectations at the door, but then there comes that freedom of being like, yeah, I don't know how it's going to turn out, and isn't that exciting, versus I don't know how this is going to turn out, and just like having that be constant anxiety. So art can be really freeing in that respect. It's in a lot of ways it's a lot like improv, and that was one of the conversations I was really having with my tattoo artist as they were doing their work, was just kind of discussing the metaphor of it being a performance. And we did a collaborative piece where I helped design, but mostly it was their freehand, but it was kind of based on a story I told them, and then I brought in like actual plants to be free-handed on, and they were amazing, and were able to incorporate like my actual blossoms that I brought in. So it was like this really neat collaboration. But what I was fascinated about, and in like that medium in tattooing, like you make one line and it is permanent. Like, aside from lasers, it is on somebody's skin, and I like just I with like everything that I do, there is not to say there's no permanence, but like I can go back out, I can rip out a line of stitching, I can erase a line. Like, I did digital illustration, digital animation, I do sculpture, I do also, there we got a chunky sound just a second, fiber art, but like nothing is so permanent that I can't take it back. And I both like marvel at and respect, and like I'm super anxious about like that kind of that intense, just, I don't even know if I have a word for it, but there's just that insane respect for like doing something that is that immediate and that permanent. And so that was really cool to like watch another artist at work, and then be a living piece of art, and now carry that with me. Their lines forever. But yeah, like, just learning to kind of like let go and live with the process is huge. And that's what they were saying, is that, yes, they can be a perfectionist, but they have to just be confident and be able to live with every line, because that's just how it is. There's no takesy backsies. Oops, I got a little kitten here. And yeah, so like absolute mad respect there, and also just being able to be flexible and confident, and just also make it work like an improv actor, but it's permanent. So to all of you who do things that are immediate and permanent, acting, dancing, tattooing, that's super super cool and such a different skill set from what I have, and so lots and lots of respect there. Okay, so my bobbin actually wasn't empty, but it's acting up tension-wise. So I'm going to take a second and unwind this and then rewind this. So it's not going to be super interesting, but it's a perfect opportunity to chat if y'all would like to. So let me undo this. So what I'm doing is I'm taking this thread off this bobbin and winding around my hand, and then I'll just wind it back on. The tension is just off on it, but I don't want to waste the thread, so I'm going to reuse it. I'm just going to rewind it. I don't know why it got so lumpy there at the in the winding, so, but waste not, want not, because there's still quite a bit of thread, but it was acting like it was empty because, yeah, just the tension got messed up. So, oh boy. And not to sound too self-promo-y, but if you are curious about my ink, I have pictures up on my Instagram, which is also a cool way to direct you to my Instagram, which is Art Skoolie. That's ARTSKOOLIE, and Skoolie is in school bus rebuild. I am Art Skoolie or Katherine Stocking-Lopez, just about anywhere here in my little corner of the internet. So yeah, search for me there. I would love to hang out on Instagram with y'all as well. Okay, so I'm going to go nice and slow to keep the tension right and wind this over here. And I'm just going to put this back. Try not to have this just get tangled. No, you don't like that, do you? Alright. Alright, we're going to make a new bobbin. Sometimes just unthreading and rethreading is the answer to most sewing machine problems. It didn't like that, so let me just grab a fresh, I'll just wind on top of this, but we're just going to make a fresh bobbin. And that way I don't have to worry about running out for a good long time, because I'll have just refueled. So what I'm doing here is putting in my gray, which is what I've been using on the bottom of the quilt, and making the bottom thread for said sewing machine, and winding a fresh bobbin. And the bobbin is what goes underneath, and it goes on these little clear spools. Oops. And you just have to make sure that its tension is good, because it's not got as much tension adjustment as like the top of the machine does. So there we go, that feels better. So having a good strong bobbin that's wound right is integral, and then having your tension through the top is good too, because again, you're doing those two threads that are like boop 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 boop, and that's how you are sewing. So pardon the noise for a second while I make a bobbin. And again, if you guys have any questions about process or equipment or materials, what I'm using and why, or any of that, drop them in chat. I'm happy to teach as much as I chat, and none of my equipment is sponsored or anything. I just use what I use because I like it. Although sewing machine companies, if you are out there. But no, I'm working on an Elna Excellence 680. I learned to sew on a FOF, and or faff, depending on where you are in the world. And this is what I've got, and it works for me. So yeah, equipment questions, feel free to yeet them in mine direction. There we go. Okay. Boop. So because I did just rewind every, yeah, I just threaded that all up in the gray. I'm supposed to be using blue on top. Let's see. I'm going to rethread here in the blue because I'm using a sky blue on top because that complements the oceanic quilt side the best, and I am using a gray in the bobbin because it goes the best with the dinosaurs down on the back. So after rethreading, there we go. I'll do a test because this is, if anything's going to go wrong, it's probably a threading issue, like if you've been sewing all day and it's fine and then you rethread and it's not, it's just because of that. So I'm just going to do a quick test. Grab my fabric. I've just got a scrap here. Test. Alright. And yeah, it looks good on both sides, which means I'm good to go. If there were any problems here, I would want to solve them before I went into the 3 layers of the quilt over here. So always minimize. It's just risk management, really. Minimizing the area that it could make mistakes on. So all right, so actually before I jump back into the, what are we on, third row, I see a corner here in the top that I didn't do, so I'm going to sew that real quick. It's got a little lobster on it, just adorable. And of course my daughter would be like, lobster, but they're cute. And I'm just going to tighten everything up while I've got it going. So okay. Zigzag. In from that corner, and then I'm going to cut back into where I did this octopus originally, because I think it needs a little bit more quilting. I'm just trying to decide exactly what I want to do, especially after you've like echo quilted something, it can be kind of hard to like quilt through it, but I've got more than 4 inches there that hasn't been quilted, so I'm going to have to do something. And I actually got a little ripple here, so I gotta back that up and requilt that part. See, I can be, there's never any guarantees that everything's gonna go perfectly. Like, I was sewing fine for, nearly 2 hours, and then, ran out of thread, bobbin was wrong, rethreaded the machine bad, and it's like, okay, slow down and get back on it. All right, we're gonna get back to a groove. And right now, of course, where I'm sewing probably isn't even going to be seen, but I'll make sure it's done right anyway. So, and even though I did a test, I'm just going to verify on the back that yes, indeed, it is sewing correctly, because again, I have the opportunity to fix things now. I don't always, so, or wouldn't want to have to fix it in the middle of a big row. So it's nice to know that things are working as they should. It would be nice if that just happened, but that is life. So I'm just going in and adding a little bit more in between these octopus's tentacles and these cute little buddies that he's like wiggling around. And that will make me feel better about the quilting, like disbursement, I guess. Density is the word. Nice, dense quilting. Appropriately dense quilting. There you go. Cool. Alright, so with that done, that's row number 1 complete. Row number 2 just about, and let's get back into row number 3. I've got the flamingo block done, and I'm here on these cute little rainbow fish, and then next up will be the oceanic heart. Scooting my whole tray there. Okay. So these little fish here are half square triangles with a nice navy fish print and the rainbow fish print. So I am echo quilting little triangles in them just to show off that shape. It's cute. And again, there's that workout from shifting this quilt back and forth. And it's probably going to make a crunching sound again because I am going through glitter, but now we know that that is a normal sound, or at least, you know, for this project, normal, and we'll just push through. Yep, that's a noise. I wasn't perfectly lined up, so I got to do a couple more stitches in this triangle here. That's okay though. Gives me room to tie a knot. Okay, there we go. Take out another safety pin. Close this so you can see a little bit more on the face cam there. Go machine, go. Okay. Thanks for letting me focus for a second there. That's a whole nother set of blocks quilted. You can see them. There's the rainbow fish I was talking about with that glitter that loved to chunk up my machine, but that's okay. I think we're through it, and it turned out nice. And now we get to do this heart, which I definitely want to echo quilt. So let me find my equipment and see about how many lines of echo quilting I can get through. So I'm going to draw a shape about 1/4 inch away from the main heart, and then see what happens if I just kind of keep expanding that, kind of like echolocation ripples or like water ripples. I wonder how many I can get on here. And I'm going to use the edge of my foot, my sewing machine foot, as the actual guide. Although now that I'm looking at this, I kind of like the ripples getting progressively larger like they were water ripples. So maybe I won't. Here we go. Actually, that looks pretty cool. So we're going to do that. That way it looks like the heart just is sending out radiating water ripples Sorry, brain's thinking. Brain is chunking along in there. Okay, so we're gonna quilt in the ditch first to get the main heart, because that should get us our 4 inches of quilting. And that's just a, you know, kind of a guide. I could look up or ask exactly how closely I need to quilt this. But 4 to 6 inches with quilting is pretty decent. I like to do 4. That way there's no space bigger than about a 4-inch square. Let's see, 4-inch square that hasn't been quilted, although you can like quilt it even more densely than that. That's really just a like bare minimum guideline so that your batting doesn't stretch. And that'll help your quilt last longer, especially if it is going to be machine washed, which, since this is a quilt for an infant human, I know that it will be washed a lot. So I want to make sure that the density of quilting is appropriate for it to have a good long life. I had my little cats out. They were hanging out with me, but I think they're just migrating now. There you go. Just take a nap. You've earned your rest. So I'm just going to keep on dragging this thing around and getting it all quilted up. You can't even see that. Bear with me as I learn my camera boundaries. And spin. So I'm essentially doing like a giant heart spiral. So I'm going to be spinning this quilt as I go around. So I'm going to get some blood back in my arms and take a little wiggle break and hydrate. Make sure y'all are doing the same. And here we go. And this one's going to look really cool from the back because obviously the heart shape will be very readable. So I wonder if it'll be like right on a dinosaur or something, which would be awesome. I was thinking about playing Ring Fit tonight, but I don't know, my arms are actually kind of sore. Okay, so now I'm going to like double the size of that ripple and have that radiate outwards so that it looks like expanding water ripples there. So my chalk lines are hanging in there, but they're fading fast, so I'm going to just do my best to mimic and see if I can keep that going. And then so I don't have to stop, I'm just going to quilt in the ditch here to kind of like carry on the pattern but like disguise it, and then just cut in where I need to. It's a little trick. Try spinning, that's a neat trick. Okay. Thanks for shouting out about the cute kitten in chat. I do have a video up on my YouTube channel on how to make these little kittens here. Let me try not to talk and focus. There we go. These little guys. There is a YouTube tutorial up if you want to make one yourself. I did one on my very first stream. That was super fun. And I have a video up as well. So check that out. Links are on my profile. It's looking pretty good, actually. And then when I get up here, since none of this connects, I will just tie a knot and jump through, because I don't need to carry that thread all the way around. So we'll just then jump back down here and continue the radiating outwards. Okay. And in the ditch while we travel. Move my safety pin. There we go. And carrying on. There. And I am just eyeballing this. Because it's water ripples. Okay. And then I'm actually going to change direction and go back down so I can get one more ripple in here. Just one more. There we go. Just cutting across. Because it would look weird without it, so. So now I will travel back by stitching in the ditch back to these adjacent jellyfish blocks. And I believe that finishes up row number 3. So we are now 3/5, just about 3/5 of the way through this quilt. Thank you, Laud. So yes, my mod team, they are putting the links in the chat there. So if you're curious as to checking out my YouTube or the very specific link to the cat video, thank you. So I've got a little 4-patch here with some manatees and some whales, and since I just did a bunch of complex quilting, I think I'm going to treat my brain and also just kind of visually continue those nice, easy kind of X's. I don't know if it's like cross-hatching isn't quite the word, and zigzagging isn't quite the word, but just nice, simple cross-throughs there. And then back up in the ditch. And one more. Okay. Big quilt. Actually leaves me right in the corner on this jellyfish block, which I may also just put a nice grid through, diagonal grid. Oops. Oops. I'm whoopsing because I see somewhere this got a little caught, so I'm going to have to investigate that. I got a little bit of a pucker in one area, and we don't want that. So I'm actually going to tie a knot here and pull this out of the machine and see what we're working with before we get too far. Because it's kind of better to catch your mistakes and fix them, even though it like breaks the quilting flow. You know, it's easier than having to go back later and be like, I don't know where that mistake was. So I'm not 100% sure what happened here. Kind of better to catch your mistakes and fix them, even though it breaks the so I'll just have to over quilt that. So it's just, yeah, I mean, you're working with soft materials, so like if you've already got your backing, your batting, your quilt top, and as you quilt it, no matter how much you baste it, it stretches. Fabric has a stretch to it. So sometimes you're going to get little ripples. The best news is it does come out in the wash, because when you wash a quilt, it gets soft and all the fabric relaxes even more, and it does get ripples. That's actually one of my favorite things about quilts, which is hard because like you've spent so much time like trying to iron it flat and get it all crisp and perfect, and then you kind of have to just trust the process that when you wash it and it relaxes, it's going to ripple. I know for some people that's actually kind of distressing because, like I said, you've spent so much time trying to get it crisp, all your corners crisp, and then you know it has to ripple, but it looks great. And actually, you know what, I'm looking at a quilt that I have that's really old, and I'm going to bring it over just so you can really see what I'm talking about. So I'm going to jump out of frame just for a second. That's actually one of my favorite things about quilts, which is hard because like you spent so much time like trying to iron it flat and get it all shuffle on back over here. Okay, so this one actually isn't even that quilted, not like as extensively as I'm doing. What they did was a combination of machine quilting and hand tying. So like from the back you can really see there's like these tufts, and then there's these lines, and these are the lines where it was quilted on the machine, and these where it was quilted by hand. That's called tying, or just it's a different style. So it left with these cool little tufts, which this was my baby quilt, so I did love like messing around with these, and they're in like tons of knots because I played around with them. But you can see how just ripply it gets around the seams, around the stitch line, and the more densely that it is quilted, the more that's going to ripple up too. And so I like it. I find it absolutely charming. Just like, you know, zooming in on this texture right here, just how the fabric, like this is whole cloth on the back, this is one piece, but just how it relaxes and ripples around that is just so darn cozy. And I find it absolutely charming. And like, so whole cloth quilts are actually really appealing to me because of the way that fabric just relaxes around that stitch line. But I know when you've got a lot of detail and you spend a lot of time making it crisp, it can be like, no, my crispness, but it's worth it. Oh, I've got one more. So I like it. This one really shows it. Not get tangled. So this one I did. This is all by hand on this one. All the piecing, all the quilting. But yeah, look at how rippled that is, and it's filthy because it's been in the window. But look, like that delicious pillowing. This has at least one, if not two layers of wool batting, but like it's cushy, it's ripply, it's alive. It just feels really cozy, and just really vintage, and I love it. I love how like pillowed that is. Like look at that scrunch. Look at it. Yeah. So that's what the quilting does. And then the more you wash it and the more you use it, of course, the even softer that's going to get. But it gives you, let me see if I can get some cool angles. It really gives you that that texture, that shadow, where things pop up and you've got a foreground and a background. And so you can really do some neat, like artistic things with a quilt. Oh, and I'm glad the camera did pick that up so you could enjoy that delicious light and shadow with me. That's definitely the art brain geeking. So thanks for geeking with me. So back to it. So like the ripple that I was working with did look a lot worse while it was under the machine, but now that I'm like playing with it flat, that will come out in the wash and wear and love of the quilt. So not as distressed about that. But yeah, thanks for coming to my TED Talk, and that is quilt repelling and why it's fantastic. So that's what you get from a quilt that you don't get from like an ordinary blanket. Back to it. So like it looked, the ripple that I was working with did look a lot worse while it was under the machine, but now that I'm like playing with okay, that will come in. So let's see, 1, 2, 3. Row 4, going across is intersected by this vertical seal here. Make sure you can see him. So he's gonna get his own quilting. So anything that I do, like sometimes it's nice to kind of quilt through 2 blocks at the same time or intersect them or pull out like individual parts of a block, but he'll definitely get his own quilting, and I'm just kind of looking at what's left because we are actually really coming up on the end of this pretty quickly. I mean, I've still probably got like an hour's worth of work, I say quickly, but to be 3/5 of the way through already feels really good because this is something I've had on the back burner that needed to be on the main burner for a while, but life got crazy. So I'm very glad it's getting done. No time like the present, guys. No time like the present. Alright, so actually, because I was just talking about them, I'm going to do this seal. So cute. And what's fun is, like, the pattern's a seal, but then, like, there's background fabric and it's 2 different seals, so it's like triple seal. I think you guys can see the little guys, but I'm gonna hold it up. It's like big seal and little seal. Like, look at their little, like, blubbery, chunky faces. Look at these guys. Just like, hello. And then on the back, it's got super cool dinosaur bones. So, like, this quilt is just cool. It's going to a freshly minted human, so I hope they will enjoy it. And what's fun is, like, the pattern of the seal. Okay, I'm going to make sure I'm not catching anything, and I'm going to flick that over a little bit. Sorry. Strain equipment. And get to where I'm not dragging things all over my desk. So I think I'm going to start by echo quilting the main guy and see where we go from there. Can't find my foot pedal. There we go. And I'm gonna get attacked by safety pins. Not that I haven't been taking my time with anything else, but I especially am going to take my time with this guy because he's just probably my favorite part of the quilt. Cool. Actually, if I just outline all his, like, sealy goodness, that should be enough quilting. So I'm going to cut in here and do along the seal flipper. Very scientific. And yeah, because this is the second and the last row. This is where the whole quilt, like, ends up in your lap, and you can kind of see me for scale, like how big this quilt really is. Like, it's a big old cozy wozy. And move it. Now the little sealed muzzle. I'm going to assume, because they look like puppies, that their anatomical bits are similarly named. So. And that big chunking that you're hearing, that's because This block has a lot of points, so a lot of layers, and that's just the machine getting through them. So not a danger sound, just the sound. I might even actually cut down and do a little nose, just because anything you're going to quilt around, like, it creates depth, you know, light disbursement and shadow. So I think it'd be cute to bring out that little pop nose, the little seal pop nose. I have a plexi table under here, which is great because it keeps my workspace a little bit more level, but of course I keep getting it caught right on this corner. One of those like, yes, you were supposed to help me. You turned into my enemy. You're supposed to bring balance to the force, not leave it in darkness. You know, all that. That's 2 Star Wars quotes now for this stream already. Sorry guys, I'm a nerd. I can't help it. Alright. And around. So this is really going to add that nice definition and make that cute little seal nose just pop. Like I was showing with that other quilting. It really does make a difference with the way the light plays off of it, and then it's very textural. I was mentioning earlier that I like to kind of trace the quilting in my quilt on my bed with my fingers, just because it does change the way it interacts. You've got that sandwich, and just like pressing down, it's kind of like, imagine like an Uncrustable, right? You've got your bread, you've got your filling, you've got your other sandwich, and like where it's pressed down and makes that seal, like ultimately that's going to be the binding on our quilt. But it's a similar thing we're doing with the quilting, where we are making those layers come together at a finer point, a more condensed point. And so, you know, imagine feeling that with your fingers. You can tell where the quilting is when you close your eyes, because it does change just the way like the structure of the quilt is compacted. And I really like the way that feels. It's very comforting to me, and it just really does make a quilt, not just in like name, because that is what quilting is that combining of the layers, but also just is what it makes it what it is. There we go. Alright, so now that little nose is quilted, and I'm going to bring it up close so you guys can see, but my hand lost. You can see the nose really does stand out a lot more, and as that's washed, that'll progress and get even richer and more dynamic. Okay, so now I've gone from about here down fin over mouth. I could jump over. Trying to think. So now that little nose is quilted, and I'm gonna bring it up close. Let's see. Yeah, no, I'll jump back over here. So I'm still just in the ditch quilting around this little seal, really just to highlight him before I worry too much about his background. I'm dragging this whole big quilt, which is super cozy right now, around with me. Make sure you guys are staying hydrated as well. Very important. It is definitely on my self-care goal list to drink more water. we are not much more than cucumbers with anxiety. But that means we are mostly made of water, so make sure you guys are staying hydrated as well. So now I'm going to do his little flipper. And so if you're wondering what is next after all this quilting is done, how do we make it from kind of this rough state with all this extra batting and everything into the quilt, we'll take it on a large mat and trim down with a rotary cutter all of the excess. And that will trim it up nice and rectangular. All of our sides will be, nice and parallel and perpendicular to each other. And then we will add a binding. If you do, slap in my quilt. If you have a quilt, you may notice that the edges are bound, which means they're like if you just have a blanket that's made out of like one piece of material, like the edge, it just stops. It's just a cut edge. But a bound edge is, drag this one back over. You can see, like I've got whole cloth here on the back. I've got my patchwork. It's nice and fluffy. And then I've got this kind of khaki binding. And that's just a separate piece of fabric that you sew on. And that's what encapsulates all of the raw edges and makes it so that your quilt is finished. It's texturally, again, one of my favorite parts because it is so much thicker. You are compressing it down again, like that Uncrustables metaphor I was making earlier. That's like that nice fluted Uncrustables edge where it is thicker. It does have it like a stronger tooth to it. It feels different than the rest of the quilt, but it's also what's nice is it's a definite boundary edge, and you can tell the quilt like ends there. So it does feel different. So that's the binding. So that fundamentally, like, it's what finishes the quilt because you do have all of this kind of raw mess here. You trim that off and then finish it. And that can be done by machine and it can be done by hand, or a combination of both is most of the time how we do it, where we sew it to one side by machine, flip it over, and finish it by hand so you get a nice, neater edge. So we'll be adding the binding to that. And then oftentimes quilts get a label, and that's like an embroidered or handwritten piece of fabric that has the information, kind of like a label in a museum, where it has the artist's name, maybe the date, maybe the occasion, and that gets sewn to the back as well. So especially because this is a gift for a fresh human, having the label on it means that, for years to come, that they know that they were loved by friends and family. And it kind of like I said, it's like an artist label in the museum. It really just finishes it off. And not every quilt has a label, but it's just something that a lot of them, especially like really like heirloom ones or ones that are handmade and gifted, do. And of course a label is necessary if you're putting your quilt in like a quilt show. There's actually a whole competitive world of quilting, if you were not aware, where people display their beautiful works of art, and those will always have labels because, again, that's all the identifying information, who did the quilting, who did the piecing, all of that. So if I know things are a little crazy right now, but if you do ever have a chance to go to a quilt show, I would highly recommend it, even if you aren't a quilter or a sewist yourself. I think it's just a really neat opportunity to see just, a different presentation of artwork. Like, I hope you guys all go to museums and stuff just anyway. But yeah, it's kind of just like a traveling, pop-up museum exhibition. So I don't know. I like to check out lots of different types of artwork whenever I can. People make cool things. Humans, just as a species, we make some pretty rad stuff. So, oh, there we go, getting tangled. And we're coming back around to where this seal will be outlined. Tying it up. So now that I've done the main quilting around him, I want to look and see if there's any areas that are bigger than 4-inch square or bordering on 4-inch square, because I want to add more quilting in. So like between here, that's only 2, here that's 2, but it is 4 in this direction, so I may want to put something there. It's probably okay. But like here, it's borderline, so I might just go ahead and quilt right in the ditch there just to get some extra quilting in. That's 4 and that's 4. So now that I've done the main quilting around him, I want to see if there's any areas that are bigger than 4-inch square or bordering on 4-inch square. And again, just remembering the quilting is structural in the longevity of the quilt. The quilt top is sewn separate, so that's different, like the patchwork. This is just to make sure those 3 layers don't shift on you. If you ever had like a swimsuit where it's got like the insert in it and like you put it through the washing machine once and that insert just like moves like all over the place, that's what quilting prevents. So like we don't want the fluff, the batting to go all over the place, so we want to make sure that it's quilted at good strong intervals so that it doesn't like wad up, especially like in the dryer. So that's why I'm like going through and just kind of keeping an eye on my measurements, because if I know that I've sewn at least every 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 inches, then I can make sure that the density of the quilting is like how often it's quilted, is good and strong for the material. So I want this to last a while, and like I said, it is going to a small human, so they make messes, and I want this to be able to be nice and strongly washed, and stand up for years to come. Okay, didn't sound like it was sewing right there for a second. Okay, we're good. So most machines, this one included, have a variable speed setting. So sometimes when I'm really focused, I'll like jump it to the turtle side, and when I'm just like clunking through, I can put to the rabbit. So if you hear a change, if you're noticing a change in the sound of the machine, it's because I just changed speed settings. So look at that. Oh, this is coming right along. Yeah, so let's spread it out and take a nice look for a second here. You can really see how the quilting does start to rumple it up in that lovely heirloom fashion, and it's starting to take on like a definite quilted appearance, which is really cool. It really is a process art. You go from individual tiny pieces of fabric that you sew into patchwork. The patchwork then becomes the full top. The top gets basted to the batting and the backing, and then it gets quilted. Like there's a lot of passes through the sewing machine or passes by the hand needle, but it changes so much between the forms. Like just even laying it out to photograph, just like the finished top, it looks so much different than when you've got it completely quilted and you've got the raised definition, and it really has different characters. It really is a different character at every stage, and it's really neat to see. Like I said, I love the quilted look. I'm not the best quilter. I am learning, so thank you for being here while I learn. But I love the way that the quilting texture adds to projects. And so I'm not afraid of putting that in because the texture is my favorite part. I am afraid of quote unquote ruining the top, and I think that's where the anxiety comes in. Is just I don't want to mess this up, but again, it is just thread, and you can wash holes out, you can fix the fabric. Nothing's permanent. It's just there's any anxiety when you're doing something on this scale or even a little scale. Any creative project has that. So I've definitely talked before about the like the completionist valley, and just getting through it. Like you're excited about a project and you're up on this mountain and there's just this like, oh wow, it's going to be amazing, and then you look out and there's this like terrifying valley of, oh, but I have to do X, Y, and Z, and then I have to finish it, and what if I mess it up? But it's getting through that valley and back to the other side that, like, even if when you come out on the other end it's not perfect, you still like made it through so much. And like definitely live by the mantra finished, not perfect, because one, I don't really necessarily believe in perfection. Nothing's ever going to be perfect, so it might as well be like finished and loved and beautiful and complete, instead of worrying about attaining this like completely unattainable goal of having it be perfect and then being scared of, I don't know, finishing the thing or ruining the thing. And it's definitely something that hits differently in each project. Sometimes the valley is really little, sometimes the valley does feel insurmountable. But just getting to that other side, like even if it didn't turn out how you wanted it to, I think there's something a lot more rewarding about it being finished than it maybe have ever being perfect, if there ever was such a thing. So definitely team finished, not perfect here, because just being able to, you know, finish this baby quilt and pass it along to a good friend and have them use it, like I could sit here and unpick and redo and unpick and redo until it was technically perfect, but then I might not ever get around to finishing it. I might get frustrated or exhausted, and like, not that the kid wouldn't care, but like, they're going to care more about having that object than my version of perfection. So finished, not perfect over here, but it still is definitely intimidating, and especially when it's a skill I'm not as like bulked up in, it still hits extra hard. Which is part of why I started streaming, actually, is because just there's something fun about being here with a community that it's like, just do it. It's something to stream, just go out and quilt the quilt. Whereas like if I was just doing it by myself, I might like chicken out or find, oh well, I'll work on something else. But it's like, nah, I'm doing this out here. We get to learn, we get to talk. And it pushes me to finish these things that I wouldn't otherwise. So I'm incredibly grateful for that. I think that's something that's absolutely fascinating. Not just technology-wise that I can do this, but community-wise, and just like genuine human to human wise. So, thank you, humans. You guys are cool. Like, we just get to be neat little beans on a floating rock in space making cool things. So, thanks for letting me, thanks for making me make things. And I think too, like once you admit to yourself and even like to a community like this that it's like, hey, I'm learning, there's not the judgment that I like expected there to be. Like I think I get scared and think everyone expects everyone to be an expert on the internet because we see so much incredible expertise. But there's something just really refreshing about being like, nope, I'm learning, and so are you guys. Like, making mistakes and kind of showing really the process of this, and just being like, nah, I'm mid-level. It's cool. I know what I'm doing enough to try, but I'm not streaming to show you how perfect I am. I'm streaming to show you like the love that I have for this. Like, quilting's cool, and I get to make these things. I get to make a quilt that's going to wrap up a small human as they grow and be part of their childhood. And, I get to show how this goes into it and how much work goes into it. And, I get to slow down and, like, even for myself, like, re-recognize how cool this process actually is. And then for me, like, my mom taught me how to sew and quilt, and her mom taught her how to sew and quilt, and now I'm teaching my daughter how to sew and quilt. And, like, gender aside, if I had a son, they'd be learning too. It's not just that, but it's more just knowing that, like, these have gone from survival skills to skills that we've passed down just because we've wanted to pass them down too. And that's something that my family has as a part of it. Like, this is part of what we do, who we are. It goes back to, like, that just cool humans floating on a rock thing. Like, this is what we can do and what we can bring to the party. And that's neat to be able to share that. I don't have to sit in a room and sew alone. I can sew with everybody for everybody. And if I can inspire one person or teach one person, or heck, if they can inspire me, I mean, like, I've seen so many really cool creatives on Twitch and YouTube, and it's made me want to do things that I thought maybe people didn't care about anymore, and that saddened me, or that just I didn't think there was an audience for. It's like, nah, people just want to see people make cool things, and really just I think my favorite part is honestly the geeking. Like, I want to see y'all geek. I want to, if you're just as happy or happier about what you're doing, like that is so cool. Even if we're all just learning, like, just to have that joy of learning and being, showing what we're doing together is super cool. So, I could sit here and be really excited about that. But I will also focus. And if you guys have, like, legitimate questions as I sit here talking about wanting to teach and learn, also point me back in the right direction, because I'm just a happy little bean over here. And if I need to focus, let me know. So. All right, so I'm doing two X's through these nice big squares here. I might go back and make them into stars as well, because they are quite large. But especially on some of these, I didn't want to take away from the cute fabric, so I'm just doing some nice simple quilting. And it also gives my brain a little bit of a rest, because we did all that complex quilting on, like, our seal boy over there. So having something a little easier in between is nice. You gotta have a visual variation as well. So. Okay, so I'm coming up on that part. Remember when I was talking about how it rippled a little bit? So I'm going to see what happens when I quilt the adjacent square, and we'll see if it will come out in the wash or if it's something I do have to address. And I think we're good. Sweet. Okay. Is there quilting? Okay, so I'm going to cut across in the ditch. One, so I can get over to where I need to be, and two, like I said, I'm in a mild problem area, and I just want to give it a little bit of extra quilting, so that it's now a pretty area. Yeah, we're good, It'll all come out. So this block has a lot of cool, like, it's a square, and then there's two rectangles and a square, and two rectangles and a square. So I'm just going to kind of mosey through in the ditch so that I can just highlight the geometry here. Because there's some cute things kind of highlighted in each fabric block. But while they are delightfully fussy cut, which fussy cut is when you have, like, you have fabric and it's got motifs on it, you choose to cut out, like, nicely around it so you don't end up with, like, I don't know, a jellyfish butt. You end up with, something much more centered. I don't think there's anything in these fabrics that I could echo quilt around that wouldn't just look weird. So I'm just going to highlight the patchwork instead of the motifs on the fabric. Oh, and now we're dragging this whole thing through the throat up here. So you can roll your quilt. Like I mentioned before, big quilts would be on rollers with a long arm, but kind of however you can shove it through the machine and just not have it pull is all we're looking for. Oh, oops. All right, I got a safety pin caught. Oh, and we're good. We're free. just quilting in the ditch on this really nice, very geometric block here. And if you caught my other stream the other day, I was talking quite a bit about patchwork because I'm going to be making a patchwork coat for my daughter. So we did the pattern and the mock-up on stream, and I've got that on my VOD channel. So if you are interested in catching up, I do have a video on demand channel. It's called Art Skoolie VOD. You can get caught back up, but we're going to be doing some patchwork. So if you have been curious about how like a quilt top goes together, or like how this quilt was made, or how the blocks were made, we're going to be doing some patchwork. We're just going to be quilting it into a coat instead of quilting it into a quilt, but it's the same thing. Same difference, just slightly different outcome. So I'm excited to show you guys that. And that will be coming up soon because I've got to get that quilt coat done because it's getting cold. And I want maximum wearability, especially again because I'm making it for a tiny human and they love to grow. So I think that's something I've learned is like I can procrastinate on my stuff a lot because I'm relatively just me sized, and but like when you're making for tiny humans that just keep growing exponentially, like you can't procrastinate on little tiny baby stuff because they grow up way too quickly. So that's kind of been a nice little kick in the booty, even though sometimes it's really stressful because you can have them outgrow something like as you're sewing it. But you know, finished, not perfect, and you know, sometimes you gotta work a little faster. But that's what's nice about like a baby quilt is if I take a little longer on it, they're not gonna outgrow it, you know, immediately. So but I still try to get things done, just because otherwise they'll sit around forever too, and I don't want that. I want things to be finished. I want people to enjoy things, because that was the point in making them. So actually, now that I'm looking at this block, even though I just went and did quilt in the ditch, I think it might look cool if it had radiating. That's what's nice about like a quilt. Yeah, I'm gonna do that. So this one's gonna be extra quilted, and that's fine. But it's gonna get these kind of radiating out, I don't know, fins, maybe. Oh, Bobbin, you're really spinning in there. Okay. Yeah, I like that. It really, like, directionally draws your eyes to all these really neat narwhals. Really neat narwhals. Cool. And then I can finish up my echo quilting of this fish. So on that pink fish block, which I know I've come back to like 6 times now, it needed just a hair more quilting. So that's what I'm adding. And I'll get on out of there. Oh yeah, that's cute. Okay, cool. Alright, so moving back down, I'm going to come back to these blocks, retighten my foot. I've got these whale blocks, which this fabric's making me really nostalgic because my mom made my daughter an outfit out of this one, and speaking of kids outgrowing things too quickly, oh, it's already too small, but And so yeah, so I've gone through and kind of like done initial quilting, and as much as I don't like to go back and forth too much, sometimes you'll be doing another area and go, yeah, that needs a little bit extra quilting, and you can just jump back and forth. I don't. It's not like I'm going to do one like medium pass and then go back and add detail. I'm trying to do it all at once, but It's a feel thing, so that you definitely can go back and forth. So I'm gonna take a look because I think we're in the last row now, which is fantastic. Which, since the seal is the bottom corner of that row, it looks like we actually only have 1, 2, 3 more blocks to quilt. So we are coming up at the end, guys. So thank you again for joining me. I'm going to keep going, of course. Finished, not perfect, but make sure I get this done. But at the end, we'll raid somebody and keep the party going and have fun with it. So I've got 3 more blocks to quilt. So let's get into it. Oh, and they're super cute. It really is like getting to rediscover this quilt all over again. Like, it's very intimate to be in here and to choose what to highlight, and really, you're bringing out a lot of the features of the patchwork, and it's, like I said, both stressful because of like that responsibility, but it's also exciting because of that responsibility. You're just, yeah, you are making a change to this, and so especially when it's a collaborative piece. Like, it's one thing if it's my own stuff to highlight and or potentially ruin. It's different when it is somebody else's work, but it's also really fun to bring it to this stage and get to do, like, get to put my mark on it. So thanks, Mom, for trusting me. So this is a 4-patch with 4 patches in it. So a 4-patch is when you've got a 2x2, but of those 2 on the diagonal, those 2 are 2x2s. So I'm going to quilt in an X so I can get the like plain blocks, and then inside those 2x2s I'll go in and add another X, which I might mirror on the plain ones as well, so we'll see. There is a lot of improv. There are really cool like quilting stencils and stuff out there, especially if you do have a long arm, which again, the quilt's on rollers, that part is there, and then you can like drag the sewing machine head. You can get really beautiful like organic lines. The way with my setup, the more geometric the better, because smaller throated machine, and then I can just follow lines. But the stencils with like these long arm ones, you can do very pictorial things, and like the skill of the quilter, they can do freehand or they can do like pre-programmed stuff. Like, just the embroidery technology and the quilting technology is one of those things. I have to laugh just because a lot of people think of quilts in a very antiquated sense. So when you're saying things like giant leaps in quilting technology, it does seem a little bit like ironic, I guess. But no, it's still very much an active art form, and anytime you can get advancements in anything that does a task of like a utilitarian task, you can bring it into the creative side. And so it's like, yeah, if computers can help us with sewing, then they can help us with quilting, they can help us with embroidery, and then we can utilize and harness that technology. And that's one thing I want to play around with too, is my mom has an embroidery machine that has a computerized program that I can take like my Adobe like Illustrator files and translate those into embroidery designs. And so it's like, it's cool because I can take something like that I wouldn't want to hand embroider. Maybe it's too much density, or I would want it to be a patch, and I can take that through the technology and make even more things and bring things to a different medium. I think that's really fascinating too. Like I said, with something that is a little bit more on the historical side, or the like antiquated side, just because it's not in the public eye as much. but really does just utilize that like almost cutting edge technology in something that is almost historical. And I like that kind of anachronism there, that contrast. But that's just things that make my geeky heart happy. Um, but yeah, no, so it's really cool to see how, and then of course how people utilize it. Like, just being in the cosplay world when like embroidery machines really hit the consumer market, people were able to make just insanely detailed costumes that they didn't have to do by hand anymore, and so then that enhanced their cosplay experience, and then it really pushed the envelope for what people could do. So it's really neat to see how anything that enters like the crafting field just really continues to push advancements, and then people's creativity then are like, oh, my turn, and they take the ball and throw it even farther. So just again, neat human beings doing cool things. So yeah. And of course, speaking of like historical, it's really neat to see like historical fashion really hit a nice community and spotlight, like on YouTube, which I know has been around in like the old forum days, but it's neat to see it like in video and see people creating and reenacting on such a bigger scale too, and cross culturally as well. And then adding in like the fantasy element, and getting into hobbit core and cottage core and all the cores. If I am smarter about this, I can do it in one line. But yeah, really people pushing their little creative muscles to the extreme and coming up with some just absolutely beautiful creations. Okay, just trying to hit those nice crisp points and really honor that geometry here that we've got in the piecing. That is something that's not easy to do. Not like so difficult that it breaks the fun, but it's not easy to get all your nice quilted or pieced points to match up. So I definitely want to honor that in the quilting, because in this case, it was my mom who did the piecing, and I want to definitely show that she was very technically proficient at what she was doing and not, mis-highlight that. So just taking the time to really hit those points. Plus then it looks extra crisp. Okay, so I'm laughing because I hadn't noticed this before. I'll bring it up. There is a little sea snail hanging out, and I just saw it while I was quilting, and it really amused me. So y'all get to see the sea snail with me and appreciate his cuteness. So yeah, that's why I was saying that the quilting is really fun, because of course, like, I was around when this was being pieced, and I helped pick out some of the fabrics, and helped a lot with the layout, but I didn't get to see every little teeny corner as much as obviously my mom did when she was constructing it. But now I get to dive into the quilting and laugh at how cute the snail is. All right, last 2 blocks. Oh, it's so nice to get this done too. I am very, very excited about sending this to the intended recipient, and it's cool to have it almost be in the next stage. So gotta shove that over to the machine. I am jumping into the middle here to do a line of in the ditch quilting from row 4 down to row 5 through row 5, just for some extra bits, and then I will have started a new line, so I can jump in here. I am very, very excited about sending this to the intended recipient. so these last 2 blocks is actually technically 3. This is a block, this is a block, and this is a block, but these are halves. So I'm counting that as 1 on our grid. I think I might quilt these guys the same as I did their counterparts over here. They have a twin block, so that's easy. I'm not sure what to do with this one. It's got the octopi with waves, a cute otter, mommy baby, and penguins, and some bubbles. So I don't want to just cross through the whole block, but these guys are too small to quilt with an X. So I'm still thinking. So this is how the brain's working. So what we're going to do is hop over to the twin rainbow fish blocks that I did over here. Because I can do them the same way while my brain like renders out what I want to do over there. So, okay. And then that'll actually be wrapping it up pretty soon. So actually mod team, if you can look for somebody to raid, that would be fantastic. And if you are new to Twitch, raiding just means if my stream is ending, we go find someone else out there doing something cool and switch over to their stream, so that if you are not ready for the party to end, you have someone else super cool to watch. And if you need to go as well, that is fine too. So I don't know, that's just, it's so wholesome. I'm really glad that's a feature. Because it's a really fun way to discover somebody new. Like, I'm super happy you found me, however you did, and so it's like we're just kind of sharing that, sharing the love. You'll find someone else out there doing something cool and switch over to their stream, so that if you are not ready for the party to end. Really chunking through the end here. Because it's a really fun way to discover something new. Like, I'm super happy you found me, however you did. And so it's like we're just kind of sharing that. It's really satisfying to take out these safety pins, because that just means it's quilted enough. It's like, I like having markers of my progress. You know, just whether it's visual or just by feel, just knowing that no matter how much it feels like you're still in the trenches, it's like now there's proof that you're really getting through it. I've got this pile of safety pins showing me that I've done something today, but also just being able to take them out is really satisfying and gives the brain a good old endorphin boost, and that's always nice. So I'm just working on this end here, just trying to hold the pattern and getting a little distracted. Sorry, brain. And coming back. There we go. All right, we're back. So that was the easy of, well, I'm getting caught. Okay, that was the easy of the last blocks. We're down to plesiosaur and octopi in here. I don't know what I want to do. I might break him into sections. I don't want to cross through the otter's face. So I'll probably outline them, cross through them. So zig, zig, zig. Yeah. That was a big problem I had when I was making a lot of masks at the beginning of lockdown and just kind of throughout. Actually, I never really stopped. It was if you had like a character, I hated having to like sew through their face if I was like constructing or putting like the nose wire in. Like even though it's just a tiny line of stitching, it's probably one of those things where I definitely thought it felt way more intrusive than it probably looks. But I'm like, no, not the face. Especially when it was like a kid's favorite character. But that's where fussy cutting comes in. You do your best to center things so you didn't have to stitch through them. But you know, like with an all over print, like if you've got, I don't know, Mario all over it, you're gonna have to sew through somebody's face. Um, oh, okay. It's probably one of the things I definitely thought it felt way more intrusive than it probably looks. And we really are zooming up quick on the end. So thank you again for being here. I hope you found it interesting and cozy, and thanks for just kind of hanging with me while I worked on this. And if you guys do have questions, even if you think about them after, I'm on all social channels. You can find me just about anywhere at either Katherine Stocking-Lopez or at Art Skoolie. Art Skoolie is my bus. And also just the name of when I'm teaching. So find me and we can chat. Whee. Okay, so I'm just putting some lines. Taking out some good safety pins. And I stream every Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Sometimes I game, most times I craft. So whatever floats your boat. Hopefully there's other ways and lots of ways that we can chill together. And then however your evening takes you from here, or morning, depending on where you are. I hope it's a lovely one. It is just about dinner time for me, so luckily for both my body and my family, I'm coming up on a good stopping point of being done so that I can take a break and make dinner. But then also, it's nice to know that this is coming up on being complete, and that's absolutely thrilling. Like I said, this is a baby present for a friend of ours, and it's so nice to just have it. So we will be raiding soon, and then I will be going to make dinner, and I hope wherever your evening takes you, it takes you somewhere great. So thanks again for joining me as we come up on the end. But also, do not worry, I will be showing the whole quilt before we get off stream, so don't leave quite yet if you want to see the end. I'm just doing my wrap-up so that when it's time to go, I don't have to stress about it too much. So we will be raiding soon, and then I will be Okay, we have just these penguins and this really, really cute otter mommy baby combo here. So I've already quilted that side and that side. So I will go in the ditch, quilt this side, and then probably zigzag these penguins here. And then that'll be it. So let's see, this side's down, this side's down. So do. Okay, big brain time. This has some lovely colors in it. Okay. That'll be it. Last block, guys. Last block. We're going to put a nice little zigzag through these penguins and the accompanying bubbles. And that will wrap it up for us. Looks like my mod has found someone to raid, which they were totally listening to my geeking earlier about woodworking and stained glass, and they have found a woodworker. Looks like similar vibes, so we're gonna go raid over there in just a second. So let me put the last knot in this, and then show you guys the finished quilting. I'm very excited. Okay, so I'll lay it out real big here. So again, for scale, you can see this is me. I am like 5'7", so not quite my full wingspan on that side. I'm getting pretty close on this side, and then I'm going to lay it out on the table, front and back. So you guys can see. Oh, I got safety pins everywhere. 1 second. Hot mess central coming through. Alright. Oh, look at that. It's a little lumpy because I've got my sewing machine underneath, but you can get a really neat view of the whole quilt and how much we put into that. Like, I'm really excited at how this all came together. So take a good look. I'm really, really proud of this. And oops, keep it spreading out because it's moseying. There we go. But yeah, no, it was really fun. This was really, really fun. It's a little lumpy because I've got my sewing machine underneath, but you can get a really neat view of the whole quilt and how much we put into it. I'm really excited at how this all Alright. Thank you guys so much again for joining me. I really hope you had fun. I did. It was really exciting to get this finished. Sorry. Cozy vibes include hiding under a blanket there. Here's the back too, which has dinosaurs because who doesn't want dinosaurs? So you can see where the quilting peeks through. You can take a look at that as well. But sincerely, I'm really, really happy that you guys came. Thank you for all the great questions, all the great observations, and also just for chatting with me. I love to just get cozy and chat with everybody. This has been really fun, and like I said, you guys are helping me finish my work, and then that is super important, just, you know, so that I, as an artist, can, you know, do my practice, but also, like as a mom, I can show my kid that we're getting stuff done, and it's really great to set these goals and be able to, you know, do them with you guys. So thank you so much. If there is anything you want to see specifically streamed, I am a variety streamer. I craft, I sew, I make art. I'm a homeschool mom. I like to game. So a little bit of everything and anything. So shout out on all my social channels. Again, I'm Katherine Stocking-Lopez, or Art Skoolie, just about anywhere in the wild west of the internet. And I'm happy to chat with you guys anytime, any place. So thanks for joining me tonight. I hope you have a wonderful evening, and we are going to raid Star Craving Metal Breakdown, who is a woodworker. So let's go. Was coding correctly. We're gonna do that again. I like to game, so a little bit of everything and anything. So shout out on all my social channels. Again, I'm Katherine Stocking-Lopez, or Art Skoolie, just about anywhere in the wild west of the internet. I am going to tidy up while I'm going to tidy up while we attempt to raid. Just I am a new streamer, so pardon the newness here. But I do really think this is my favorite part of Twitch, is just being able to kind of share that community love. And there we go, now it's working. So stay tuned and watch Star Craving Metal Breakdown do their woodworking thing. Thank you for watching me do my thing, and yeah, let's tidy up, because we're gonna have a good art practice here, and that's definitely something that I am working on. So let's have proper practices, do self-care, and also just make sure we tidy up our workspace, because you're worth it, I'm worth it, and let's get everything ready so that we can play next time. I say as I spilled like 60 safety pins on the floor. I didn't, all the good intentions of the world don't necessarily stop me from being a hot mess disaster, but that's okay. I'm trying. And I think the universe also likes to remind me anytime that I think I might have my act together, that maybe I just also need to keep practicing. So there we go. And remember that if you did miss out on any of the streams, I do have a VOD channel, or they're up here on Switch for 14 days. I am trying to get to Twitch affiliate so they can be there longer, but I really just appreciate the support and you guys hanging out and being here. So thank you so very much again. So I can take these safety pins out of all of the quilt now. And I will bring this back on stream either to do the binding by hand or to show you guys how it turned out finished before I send it out. So let's see. Safety pins literally everywhere. Oh boy. Alright, there we go. Alright. Raid is starting. Let's do it. Okay. Alright, so again, guys, thanks for joining. Please enjoy Star Craving Metal Breakdown and enjoy the show. Thanks for joining mine. Bye!